Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Iraqi Dinar, where we dive deep into everything related to the Iraqi currency and the latest economic developments. If you've been keeping an eye on the world of currency news, chances are you've come across a lot of chatter about the Iraqi dinar, especially the ongoing discussion about removing zeros from the currency. This subject has stirred up quite a bit of confusion and even some speculation. So today, I want to take a step back and break it all down for you. By the end of this video, I promise you'll have a much clearer understanding of what's going on with the dinar and why this issue is so significant. Stay tuned because this one's important. Let's start by tackling the burning question. What exactly is all the fuss about removing zeros from the Iraqi dinar? Recently, Silo, a well-known figure within the Iraqi government, made a pivotal statement that caught the attention of many. He addressed the idea of removing zeros from the currency and essentially ruled out the possibility of doing so in the near future. Now I can imagine you're sitting there thinking, what does that really mean? Why does it matter? And why should I care about this at all? Trust me, it's not as complicated as it may seem. The reality is the idea of removing zeros isn't really about increasing the value of the currency directly. Instead, it's about making the currency more user-friendly and easier to manage in everyday life. You see, removing zeros from a currency is a strategy that some countries have considered as a way of simplifying the way people handle money. It's less about boosting the currency's value and more about convenience for everyday transactions. Let me explain with an example that should make this a little clearer. Imagine you have a 25,000 dinar note. At the current exchange rate, that 25,000 dinar is worth roughly $19 USD. But here's where things get interesting. What if Iraq decided to remove 3 zeros from the currency? Suddenly, instead of holding on to a 25,000 dinar note, you'd be holding a 25 dinar note. So you're probably thinking, okay, that sounds great, but what's the catch? Here's the kicker. Despite the change in the number of zeros, the actual value of the currency doesn't change. Let's say the exchange rate stays the same at 0.76, meaning that each dinar is still worth about 76 cents. In this case, your 25 dinar note would still be worth $19, just like the original 25,000 dinar note was. The only difference is that the numbers on the note look simpler, which makes it easier to deal with in everyday transactions. So why go through the trouble of removing zeros if it doesn't actually increase the value of the dinar? The answer is simple. It's all about convenience and simplicity. Think about it. If you're out shopping or paying bills, wouldn't it be a lot easier to deal with smaller denominations rather than handling massive amounts of money in large denominations like 25,000 dinar notes? It would be pretty inconvenient, right? The whole point of removing zeros is to make everyday transactions easier to manage. It's about streamlining things and making the currency more practical, not about magically increasing the value of the dinar. Now, I'm sure some of you have heard experts or so-called currency gurus out there claiming that removing zeros will lead to an improvement in the exchange rate. And this is where a lot of the confusion comes in. But here's the thing. They're missing the point. Removing zeros doesn't affect the actual value of the dinar. It's not going to make the currency more valuable or cause it to appreciate overnight. It's really just about simplifying the numbers to make things easier for everyone, from everyday shoppers to business owners. Now, I know this can sound pretty confusing because there's so much misinformation and speculation floating around. You'll hear all sorts of stories, theories, and even wild predictions, especially from people who claim to be experts in the world of currency. But here's the truth. The removal of zeros doesn't fix Iraq's underlying economic problems or solve inflation. It's a cosmetic change at best. If you're trying to figure out whether this means the dinar is suddenly going to skyrocket in value, I'm here to tell you, it's not going to happen. Removing zeros won't magically fix the economy. This leads us to another important topic, inflation. To understand how removing zeros relates to inflation, we need to take a moment to talk about how inflation works. Inflation happens when there's too much money in circulation, and as a result, the prices of goods and services increase. If Iraq's central bank were to remove zeros from the dinar, it wouldn't necessarily change inflation because it wouldn't reduce the total amount of money circulating in the economy. It just makes the money look different. So, while it might make transactions easier and more manageable for people, it doesn't directly address the root causes of inflation. For those of you concerned about the economic stability of Iraq or the value of your investment in the dinar, it's important to remember that the situation is far more complex than simply removing zeros. The real issue is about managing the money supply in a way that keeps the economy stable. If there's too much money in circulation and not enough goods or services to match it, inflation will occur. The goal of the central bank is to control the money supply in a way that stabilizes the economy and keeps inflation in check. Here's where it gets a little more technical. The Central Bank of Iraq has significant control over the supply and circulation of dinars in the economy. The central bank can make decisions that directly affect the value of the currency, including withdrawing dinars from circulation to limit the amount of money flowing through the economy. When there's less currency in circulation, the value of the dinar tends to rise because it becomes scarcer. When there's a scarcity of something, demand usually goes up, and that can help stabilize the value of the currency. If the central bank can manage the money supply effectively, it could help stabilize the economy and create more value for the dinar. However, it's not as simple as just pulling dinars out of circulation. There are risks involved. For example, if the central bank reduces the money supply too quickly, it could cause problems like deflation or even a lack of liquidity, which means there would be less money available for people to spend. So it's a delicate balancing act. The central bank has to be very careful with how they manage the currency supply to avoid any negative side effects. And let's not forget about Iraq's political situation. Political instability plays a huge role in the currency's value. If there's uncertainty or instability within the government, it can lead to a lack of confidence from investors, both locally and internationally. If investors don't feel confident about the political environment in Iraq, they may hold off on investing in the dinar, which could prevent the currency from gaining value. On the other hand, if the government can stabilize the political climate and create more certainty, it could attract foreign investment, which would be a huge boost for the economy and the value of the dinar. Speaking of foreign investment, let's consider how outside investors could influence the dinar's value. Imagine you're an investor looking for opportunities in emerging markets, and you've got your eye on Iraq. If Iraq decides to reduce the circulation of the dinar and allows foreign investors to get involved, there could be a surge of interest in the currency, which could push the value up due to increased demand. We've seen this happen in other countries like Turkey and Vietnam, where currency values increased after managing their money supply effectively and attracting foreign investment. But there's a catch. If Iraq restricts international investors from buying or exchanging dinars, the currency could remain undervalued. It's a tricky situation that requires careful planning. If the government can manage this process well, it could lead to a significant economic boost. But if they mismanage it, there could be negative consequences. To sum it all up, the conversation around removing zeros from the dinar isn't just about changing the numbers on paper. It's about managing the money supply, controlling inflation, stabilizing the economy, and attracting investment, all while maintaining political and economic stability. It's about having the right policies and strategies in place to support Iraq's long-term economic health. If you're thinking about investing in the Iraqi dinar or just staying informed about its potential, make sure you're following reliable sources and talking to financial professionals. It's crucial to understand the broader picture and not just rely on rumors or so-called experts online. Always question what you hear and take the time to critically evaluate the information you come across. That's all for today's breakdown on the removal of zeros from the Iraqi dinar. I hope this helps clear up any confusion and gives you a better understanding of what's really going on. Remember, this isn't just a numbers game. It's about Iraq's economic stability, its people, and the future of its financial system. If you found this video helpful, please hit the thumbs up button and share it with anyone who might be interested in learning more about the Iraqi dinar. And as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about the removal of zeros? Do you believe it's just a cosmetic change, or do you think it could actually have a real impact on the economy? Let's continue the conversation and keep the discussion going. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.